Hi.
Hi, Celeste.
Hey, Alexander.
Hey Ken, do you have my video screen? Video sharing?
No.
I just have it hidden off the screen.
Oh, all right, perfect. Oh, well, I just wasn't sure it was working. Perfect.
No, I'm going to hide it off screen until you're ready for it, and then we'll switch over to that mode. Just let me know when you're ready.
Why is there a banner on that screen share?
Because
Oh, that reminds me, I have a little device to ship you, Mr. Rice.
we'll ship it.
After the call, I will take it down on my way to Greg's mom's, and I will ship it.
Brian ready? Kathleen ready? Everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to get started here, guys. So, unless it's your turn to speak, please remain muted so that we can get everything ready to go. Here we go, guys.
This is ClueCon Weekly, the official FreeSWITCH web show produced and broadcasted directly from FreeSWITCH. ClueCon Weekly features live updates from the FreeSWITCH developers and presentations from various pioneers of communications technology. ClueCon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSWITCH Solutions, the official consulting firm of the FreeSWITCH open source project. Get help from the experts. Visit freeswitch.com. ClueCon, the premier technology conference for telecom, WebRTC, IoT, and all things maker. ClueCon is held every year in Chicago, Illinois, and offers an all-day hackathon and 4 days of technology-rich presentations from developers around the world. Learn more at ClueCon.com or call 877-748-CLUE.
All right, guys, welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Today is the 8th of March, 2017, and today we'll have Lorenzo, Celeste, and others from the Homer SIP project joining us. If you guys aren't familiar with Homer, it is a logging and capture tool, and it's really cool, so stay tuned for that. Coming up next, we have Mr. West doing the news. How are you doing today, Brian?
Doing pretty good, Ken. I think it's time to touch on... We've been doing a GoFundMe for the Allison sound set for FreeSWITCH. This morning we had IQ Ventures donate $500. Thank you guys for that. If anybody donates $100 or more, Kepstrel will give you a free single port Linux license for the Allison TTS voice to go along with that sound set. We still got a little ways to go, so visit the GoFundMe page. We'll put it in the link below. If you guys have any questions whatsoever about that, you can email Brian at freeswitch.org, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. And that's pretty much it today, Ken.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, Brian. On that, next up, we'll have Kathleen for the Week in Review, so stand by for that, guys.
Fantastic. Well, next week we have our very own FreeSWITCH team joining us. So for those of you who would like to see some updates and hear what we've been up to, keep that in mind. You can watch it live on YouTube or call in, join, ask some questions. ClueCon this year will be 4 days, including our Monday hackathon. So keep that in mind when you register, when you're booking your flights and getting your hotel rooms. Monday is going to be full of awesome presentations, games, demos, and this is a day for hanging out, relaxing, and competing for cool prizes. So be sure to join us for that. This year we have a wonderful event on Thursday night, sponsored by VoiceTel. We will be venturing out into the river and lake for a sunset cruise. So be sure to RSVP for that when you register. And speaker sign up for ClueCon is open right now. We have had a few submissions. Get your submissions in sooner rather than later so we can review those and get you on a schedule. We're very excited about the lineup for this year. ClueCon 2017 is going to be fantastic. So be sure to keep that in mind. Oh, and make sure you get your speaker submissions in before May 1st. That is a big change from previous years. That'll let us go through, evaluate all the submissions, and make sure that we can come up with the best schedule possible. So please get your submissions in before May 1st. We cannot accept anything after that. So keep that in mind, mark your calendars, submit sooner rather than later. And when you register, go ahead and book your hotel room. You don't want to forget or wait till the last minute and end up on the floor. So get that done. We're staying at the lovely Swiss hotel. Fantastic views, gorgeous rooms. It's going to be a lot of fun. And for those of you traveling to the US from other countries that need paperwork from the FreeSWITCH team, please start that process now. Brian is very busy. And so if you can start it sooner rather than later, he can get that back to you, returned, and get it all sorted well before the conference. And that's it. Back to you, Ken.
All right. Thank you very much, Kathleen. And hey, guys, don't forget, Kathleen kind of skipped over this so we could talk about this real briefly. If you want to get more information on ClueCon, go to ClueCon.com. There's a brand new website there. It just launched yesterday. We've already got some of the schedule is already posted there for a lot of the big events. A lot of the speakers are not posted yet. Those will be coming here shortly. But you can get information on the hotel. You can see what events are planned for the evening. You can register for ClueCon. The calendar's there. You can start seeing who the sponsors are, checking those out. There's already several sponsors on there. Thanks for those guys for making this possible every year. And if you want to get listed on the sponsor page, you can contact marketing at ClueCon.com. That'll get you in touch with Brian and Kathleen and the rest of the marketing team. And you can get that information right there on the website. So guys, go ahead and go check it out. And it's available today, and it looks good on mobile. It's good on the desktop. You'll find all kinds of little stuff hidden in there because we've used a lot of stuff from previous years. Also on there, we haven't talked about it much, but there's information on the hackathon, some of the things that are going to be going on there, and some more information for you guys that have APIs that you want to get into the hackathon and get shown off. There's some information there for you too, so go check it out today. And you'll also, we'll be posting, there's a blog section, so you can get all the news and updates right off the site as they're available. If you missed it on social media, you can pop over there real quick and say, oh, okay, so this is what's going on here and there. So go check that stuff out. It's really cool. So back to the main program here. Today we've got the guys from Homer. We've got Lorenzo and Celeste. Hey guys, how are you doing today?
Doing great, and thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Lorenzo. So, you know, for Homer, correct me if I get this wrong, Lorenzo. What it is, it's a SIP capture tool that we can hook up to, say, FreeSWITCH or Comet Elio or OpenSIPs, or even run passively and collect all the different SIP packets, get those into a database so we can go search through, find calls, and find all kinds of other really cool stuff about it.
That's right. That's basically the classic Homer, let's call it, and it was making sense considering that the name of our organization is SIP Capture. So everything was very much SIP centric, and exactly as you described, the very point of the platform, what we aspire at being is a centralized collector where people can just plug in all of their voice elements and get an easy environment where they can troubleshoot what they're doing. So anything from getting a full session out all the way to generating passive statistics about what the systems are doing exactly. So just trying to making it easier for ourselves and all of our colleagues to troubleshoot be it a developer or engineer, there's always a use for making the job easier or performing faster. So that's what Homer is all about.
Cool. So I understand you have some things that you want started on that.
Absolutely, and indeed, today it's very much an attempt at an interactive session here. So I'm going to have some slides up where recap, let's say, where we are. Just for all of those that might not be aware of the status of the project, it's just a really quick recap. So it's not a long presentation, just rather a few slides. So as you were saying, Homer and FreeSWITCH already have this level of interaction, so it's easy and it's well documented how to use the native HAP capture agent in FreeSWITCH to mirror basically the internal signaling out to Homer for exactly troubleshooting, storing, correlation, and all of that stuff. But what most users do not know, or maybe they don't didn't have a chance to use much, is about everything else that you can do with Homer. So on the side of the SIP signaling, which is clearly what goes in and out of our networks, there's everything else that happens within the systems. Especially within FreeSWITCH, there's a lot of action in the background that normally is only reachable by either the logs or being attached exactly to the event socket. And that's what we did at some point. I think we started this quite a long ago, but it became usable about a year ago with this one application that was called HapPipe, which was basically a small way to extend Homer not only to do SIP, but to also correlate other type of packets. In this case, it was simply log lines. And the idea worked pretty good, so we extended over and over. And at some point, we decided to support a little bit, let's say, the full stack of FreeSWITCH. So we just plugged basically to the ESL socket. We started parsing all of the events, trying to correlate them, of course, when possible, with SIP sessions, because at the time this was driving basically the way that Homer was able to put the packets, the data types, and everything else together. And it worked really good. So today here we have a quick recap, but basically we can listen to channel events and turn them into packets that Homer can understand and can basically attach to the session. So when there is a session established, everything that has to do with that session, basically we can grab it out of the event flow and we can send it to Homer where it's basically directly presented to the user. So when you would open or look for a specific session, you would pull it up, you would see all of the messages, and then you would also see what the various systems related to handling these sessions were doing. And we do a little bit of magic there. So what we're after is really correlation. So we're not just sending all of the events as they are. And for the most part, we try to just cherry pick what's useful for troubleshooting. And we also do some magic turning back the media channel events. So everything that has to do with the call quality, we build them back into what we call RTCP JSON, which is basically an RTCP representation that we have inside of Homer. And of course, the final report. So on channel destroy and every other final event, we grab everything that FreeSWITCH spits out for that session, and we also send it home. At the same time, we keep correlation. So different events are correlated in different ways between them. Not always a single event can be tracked back to what it means within the correlating platform. So we kind of came up with this small set of logic within what we call HapPipe, which is the JavaScript version. And it's currently available on our GitHub, but we're presenting a little evolution over this today. But how it was working basically was parsing all of the ESL events. It was grabbing out the correlation header, so the key ones, the order leg, unique ID, and variable SIP call ID headers from the ESL stream, and it was using them to basically find new messages that were belonging to a master session. So the first one would determine the tree of correlation that would then spark between different events. And we would just mark them, turn them into a HAP object using our HAP NPM module. So a full Node.js application, and just send it to Homer. So basically it could be presented alongside the SIP session. And over time and over the months, we extended it so it could be used a single pipe instance could be used also to monitor multiple instances. It could be contained also alongside FreeSWITCH within Docker containers, and also in a way that it could send the output to multiple Homer instances. So ideal for multi-home setup and those where you basically have virtual instances that come up with little to no configuration to do the monitoring. So everything basically could be attached to a HEPIPE instance, local or remote, and do basically all of the activity for mirroring the relevant logs. And we got to a point where actually our users were pretty happy with it. So this is an example of the configuration. It was as simple as defining the ESL connectivity, basically how the HEPIPE could reach one or multiple ESL sockets, and which kind of events we would be interested in. So call events, RTCP events, which is basically everything deriving from media, and QoS, which is a mix of the final reports and some of the RTCP receive, which is the relayed RTCP messages going through FreeSWITCH. On the other side, we have an example for output as well. So we can also tap with this tool the actual FreeSWITCH log, and we can extract anything from it with regex filters, simple or complex. We can have one or multiple rules, and we can insert this as well into the stream so that it's all presented nice and clear in one single view. And this is basically where we arrived with HEPIPE, which was per se a prototype or an experiment just to see if this technology was viable. And I think we passed that exam. So right now we have dozens of users which do not want to go back. So they love being able to troubleshoot the signaling and the system logs at the same time without having to scale up to much more complex solutions or having multi-stack solutions, especially if they only do voice. And at the same time, Homer is also evolving, so we're trying to get away from the SIP-centric nature of our application initially into a generic collector where exactly multiple flows, be it network protocols or logs of streams of logs or whatever it be, JSON messages, instances from the REST API can be collected. And a very good example of this that we've seen in the past weeks is with OpenSIPs. So OpenSIPs is being featured so that it can have basically this approach built in. So we want to have a platform be able to just send everything that it wants to Homer and let the user make sense of it with the correlation being handled behind the scenes. So with HEPIPE, we kind of reached the limit of the design of this prototype. So we decided to start PassStash, which is basically a log stashing node, very specialized for our environment. So it still supports all of the fancy things, and it can input and output in basically all of our industry standard formats, but it's specialized to support our platforms. So here I have a quick slide where I try to make an example of how we transformed the previous idea into something that's more flexible and manageable. So we have basically pipelines, and we can have as many as we want in parallel, where we have an input, a filter, or one or multiple filter, and then one or multiple output ways. So an input can be just about anything, but in our case, we're looking at FreeSWITCH. So we can tap log files, as we've seen, with single or complex regex rules to extract specific values that we're interested into. We can use the good old ESL socket, so we can just attach to it and take all of the events that we're interested into. Or we can also attach to Xeron queues, so we can get our events out of a queue, which can be simple or complex. It can even come from another PassStash instance. When we make it into the pipeline, we basically have a dedicated socket receiver, which takes care of just grabbing the events. Then we have a filter, and here we wrote a dedicated filter for FreeSWITCH, which is able to do the smart correlation that we were talking about in a very fast and streamlined way. So it just knows which events have to be sent, which are relevant to something that we're already looking at. And on top of that, it provides also a distributed way to share this information about correlation with other elements that might be doing the same job. So we said OpenSIPs just a minute ago could be on the other end of the session and doing something else, and it might have relevant logs which have something to do with what we're looking after. So in this way, we allow basically the two applications to communicate with each other and exchange correlation information associating users with call IDs, with session, with transport IDs, and so on and so forth. Basically, anything can be defined. It's like a big key value store that can be shared with this specific person. And then the output, we can, of course, send it to our platform using the HAP encapsulation protocol, which is our own protocol that Alexander, who's also on the call, has been designing and maintaining for the last 6 years, probably. And it does exactly what we need. So it retains the original packet and it ships it to Homer so that you can do the full investigation. But we also support everything else that this platform offers. So we have the luxury of using NPM modules, so we can send it to just about anything else. Elasticsearch, StatsD, to Redis, we can create queues that we'll see in some examples, post it to another API. We can just program it to do anything we want. A more complex picture, just to extend on what we were saying, we can have multiple instances, for instance, looking at different FreeSWITCH clusters that can be have their own pipeline where we make sense of our logs, and they send it to a common Homer. But in the background, they can also exchange this correlation ID. So if we have a failover, basically from a cluster to another one, all of the statuses from a monitoring perspective, of course, would also remain alive. So something that FreeSWITCH, of course, does internally, we can now do also from a monitoring perspective. So we can watch a failover happen, and we can still retain the correlation. So when you would investigate a session, you'll basically be able to see that it went from a cluster to the other, what happened to the media, what happened to the sessions, and so on and so forth. So very powerful and pluggable. So new elements that will come into the picture can basically directly be plugged into this mechanism and just leverage it. Here's an example of basically how it would look like in a call flow. So this is how also the call flow looks like in Homer 6, a little bit refreshed and lighter. But basically, it's no longer just SIP messages. So we could see what the platforms are doing also behind the scenes. So behind the SIP message, there might be lookups, there might be logs be generated, and there might be also media reports be generated. So all of this basically becomes one in the new version and with this new architecture, and it can be just grabbed and reassembled. So Homer does all of the heavy lifting, and the platforms cooperate to produce basically correlation items that can be consumed and exchanged. In terms of how it's programmed, it's also a lot cleaner now. So those of you that ever used Logstash, and mind, I'm not a big fan of Logstash per se, or Java applications in general, but the format of configuration is very efficient. So in this case, we recycle it, so you can use exactly the same. And here we have an example where we, as we mentioned above, open an ESL socket, we pass it through our filter, which does correlation, and then we just spit it out to Homer. And if we have a complex architecture, we can open many of those sockets. We can create a queue where we can have basically a listener that takes care of sending it to Homer or distributing this job across multiple agents. If you're not a fan of here's somebody else. If you're not a fan of using Homer alone, you can, of course, as we said, use any other output format. So here's an example of the same. So grabbing your events from ESL and just sending them out to Elasticsearch, or doing the same with a log. So grabbing specific items. In this case, it's an example from Federico and Giacomo, I think, looking after Opus items in the logs. And you can choose where you want to send it, where it makes sense for you to use it. So we don't want Homer to be a sort of a fourth choice. So the technologies that we're using for monitoring can be leveraged in many ways. And we want to open that door. So it's interesting to see also what people can do when provide them means to have different configuration. So this is a little bit of the recap that we just wanted to bring everybody up to speed with. And the idea is exactly to find out what's next. So this is what we came up with ourselves. But of course, people that rely on FreeSWITCH on a daily basis or deal, with the challenges of running a complex architecture probably have even better idea. So here, I would actually ask the rest of my team, and we have Alexander and Giacomo here as well with me, to help me out on this next phase. This is a few items that we came up with. And maybe if, Giacomo, you want to take over this part and just introduce the idea?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. I think you covered basically all the points. I think there are a few a few things that are worth highlighting for the community. First of all, stressing that Homer support comes out of the box with FreeSWITCH. So for what concerns SIP signaling, everything is just there. It just needs to be configured, and after that, Homer can be used, and the call flow appear on the Homer GUI, which is very useful. In my experience, something that administrators of the VoIP platforms want to see is also, first of all, the correlation of the lags. So what typically happens with FreeSWITCH is that you have an incoming lag and an outgoing lag, and by manipulating the SIP headers, Homer can in fact do the correlation for you. So when you see the call flow, you see separate SIP calls, but in fact the same logical call, which is extremely useful when you are debugging. And in addition to this, what I saw extremely useful, as you mentioned, Lorenzo, when dealing with Opus, there is the opportunity with the external application pipe.js, and then in the future will be probably Pastache. There's the opportunity to correlate to the SIP signaling also RTCP reports, so that at the end of the call you can see the call flow, but also a report on packet loss and jitter, for example, but also the end of the call quality of service report, so that you get a nice report about the, for example, the how many times FEC was played, or other metrics related to Opus quality in general. And of course, if you want, you can associate custom logs. So all you have to do is just prepare regular expression, get in the logs from FreeSWITCH logs, and put the correct correlation ID, which is typically the call ID. And then Homer will present also that information together with the same nice call flow. One thing that I wanted to stress is that it's mentioned in this last slide, which is Verto support, because I think in the future we'll have it. We'll have all the requests and events that are used during a Verto session. We would like to have it together with the SIP signaling, so that it will be one single call flow with everything which is not SIP. And I think this opens also the possibility for a more generic, I think modern API approach, when inside a WebRTC or VoIP call you have interactions with APIs. So the objective is to have the HTTP sessions also well highlighted and correlated with the SIP sessions. One last thing, I think Ken also mentioned already, Chameleon OpenSIPs already supported. So the typical open source state of the art is all compatible with Homer. So it's the typical scenario that you can find without much effort. And I think it's pretty much it what I wanted to say. I think one small thing, if you are for people already using Homer, we recently developed a small dissector for Wireshark. So if you want to debug the debugging tool, you can do it with directly with Wireshark, and you will see all the data that it's flowing inside the HEP connection. And that's pretty much it.
Cool. There's a lot.
Thank you, Giacomo. That was really helpful. And I'm not sure if Alexander, maybe you want to extend, with something from your side in terms of also the backend and what's coming with Homer and the next version.
Yeah, okay. But normally you already mentioned what it will be more correlation between multiple protocols. But yeah, it's our focus on next release. We're also working on new user interface, which will we will optimize some JavaScript stuff, and of course we are working hard on SS7 integration. So next release will be has deep integration with SS7. with zig trans, and you will see all call flow between SS7 and SIP protocols without any limitation. Yeah, but it's come more and more new features, and probably we will on OpenZip Summit in Amsterdam and next month, in 2 months, sorry, we will present a new version, and everybody will be happy.
With a H, HAP.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty much our, yeah, exactly. I would call it a recap because it's not really, still introducing anything finalized. It's still, on the surgery table. And this is exactly what we're hoping somebody here is going to come up with some cool ideas or something that we maybe didn't think of, and we can, put back into the roadmap. So it's, from our side, it's community time.
There's a lot of cool stuff in there. So, does anybody have any questions for these guys while we got them here today? Oh, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
So, pull the mic a little bit closer. So, anybody have any questions for these guys? I know Homer's been around for a while now, and there's some really cool stuff in here. So, if you haven't tried it, so just for the guys that are new to Homer, Lorenzo, Giacomo, somebody, what's the easiest way for them to get Homer up and running and deployed, say for testing?
That's a really good question. So the really easiest way, if you're running, let's say, modern operating system, or in other words, Debian 8 or CentOS 7, is to just run our installer script. Because that takes care of things interactively, so it will download, all of the packages. It's kind of old-fashioned, but it just does the job in a really good way. For anybody that's using Docker, we have a really nice set of Docker containers. So we have an all-in-one Homer container, which is ideal for somebody that just wants to take a look. And for anybody who wants to run Homer in a more serious fashion, we have a multi-container set, which our team has been working on with a lot of help also from our external contributors, and it just works fine. I think also here Giacomo and Federico might have some experience to share if anybody's interested on the call or afterwards, but those are the basically two easiest entry points. So we tried also to have packages for a while, but the application just moved so quickly that it was becoming just hard to maintain. But that's something that we've been working on, and with the help of Daniel Pocklock, we've been making a lot of progress, bringing also Homer to standard distribution. So in the near future, you should be able to just have to get a Homer or Yum Homer and get the entire application up and running. But for now, the installer is, I would say, the best way to get the latest bleeding edge Homer up and running.
Cool. Yeah, so you guys go check that out, sipcapture.org, and all you guys' work is on GitHub there at github.com/sipcapture, correct?
Oh, that's .org. You see, when you work last minute, but everybody knows GitHub. So SipCapture on GitHub is where you find all of our stuff. Everything is there, so it's all open source. It's pretty modular nowadays, so Homer itself is made of a few pieces. But again, going at the installer, you'll just get the full stack deployed, which is made really of either OpenSIPs or Kamaido acting as a capture server by using the SipCapture module, which we write and maintain. And on top of that is our user interface and API, which can be executed just about with anything, but we typically deploy PHP with Apache 2 or Nginx.
Cool. All right, guys. Any other questions for the Homer team while they're here?
Yes. Ciao Federico, ciao Dragos. I have a question for Alexander. And there was some glitch with the correlation of RTCP for calculation of mean opinions score. the most, the quality of audio. And that was because it depends on where you capture, but you end up having different IP numbers because you have internal or external IP numbers into SDP that ends up to be different than the one into the headers. And that was kind of giving me problems, and I had implemented some hack to go around that. But what I would like to know if possibly in the last couple of months, if you have made something different into that, in specifically is correlation between the MOS calculation and internal IP addresses that can be different from the external ones.
I'll pick this one up, even if it was for Alexander. This is very much, Giovanni, the point of this new way of correlation that we're proposing here. So the only way to really do the job without hacking around is to have the all of the layers, let's say, of our architectures be able to send correlation events. And this is something that in OpenSIPs is basically already a reality, but we want to make it so also for FreeSWITCH and anything else. So when we have access to tell our correlation engine about also exactly correlation between internal and external IPs, be it NAT or just simple mapping on your network or just anything else, this can be used in the process that you described. So when we look up and we do the estimations, we would then have access also to exactly allocate internal IPs to external, or know what is the same call effectively captured twice, and all of those nice things that today you can really do ad hoc. So of course all of our stuff is open, so you can, as you did, go in and make it work for your specific case, but we wanted to generalize the solution for this problem. So nothing has really changed in the current version of Homer, but it radically changes so that you can program this or have the platform do it on your behalf with a simple configuration that then works over time in the new version. So this is something that you're basically going to get in about a couple months' time in a reliable way.
That's perfect. Super. Thank you a lot, Lorenzo and Alexander. And I will play a lot with it. Thank you.
Oh, I count on you playing with it. Thank you.
All right, guys. All right, cool, guys. Thank you for the good question there, Giovanni. Anybody else have any questions for the Homer team while we have them here today, guys? Come on, jump on in here, unmute yourself, and ask your question. All right. Well, then, what I want to do is we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up for today. There's a lot of good information there. For you guys that are watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button down below. You'll get more information there. You'll also be able to see the links and stuff in the notes, so you guys check that out later on. Also, coming up next week, come join us and see the FreeSWITCH team, and we'll be back here at noon Central for that. And for you guys overseas, don't forget that this is the weekend that the U.S. does their time change, so to be a slightly different time, an hour later or hour earlier for you guys over in Europe next week. Thanks, and we'll see you guys right back here next week. Have a good one.
You've been watching ClueCon Weekly. Tune in every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, or visit us online. Please follow the FreeSWITCH team on Twitter and Facebook by visiting our site at freeswitch.org.